Night in Paradise is directed by Park Hoon-jung and stars Tae-goo and Yeo-bin. Tae-goo has previously starred in many acclaimed films like Age of Shadows and Coil Like a Girl, and Yeo-bin has previously starred in After My Death and the recent Korean drama series Vincenzo. Park has previously directed acclaimed films like The Tiger, New World, and I Saw the Devil, many of which are favorites, and we see him once again venturing back into the Korean underworld in Night in Paradise. The film's plot is something we have seen a few times before, and the closest comparison would be one of my favorites, A Bittersweet Life. The plot follows Tae-goo, played by Tae-goo, who is the right hand of the boss of one of the gangs in the Korean underworld. After his close family gets assassinated, he sets on a path of revenge on a rival gang whom he holds accountable for their death. Things obviously go awfully wrong, and he has to flee mainland to Jeju Island, with the final destination being Russia. On Jeju Island, he stays with an arms dealer who's also a former gangster himself, and this is also where he meets Jeon, played by Jeon Yeo-bin. Jeon is the niece of the arms dealer who has a terminal illness and a troubled past of her own. While he is situated on Jeju Island waiting to transfer to Russia, things become increasingly worse on mainland when his boss tries to grab the power vacuum left by the havoc Tae-goo brought on the rival gang. But this goes terribly wrong, and the rival gang teams up with Tae-goo's former boss to hunt him down as a form of sacrifice to mend the relationship between the two gangs again. The film is a slow burner, focusing on the characters to start with and then building towards a classic grand showdown as you expect in these type of films. And while there's nothing new in terms of the plot, as most of it is predictable, it doesn't have to be as long as it is executed well. And Night in Paradise is very well executed. It is cold, bloody, brutal, but it also has a warmth stemming from the relationship between Tae-goo and Jaehyun, who, with her cynical view and dry wit, keeps the dynamics between the two interesting and entertaining. And also, this is the first film I've watched with Tae-goo in the lead role. And he's amazing in it. I think he fits the character perfectly well. His voice, his attitude, and his looks fit the role. The action scenes are particularly good. They're bloody, violent at times, and well choreographed and executed. Not on the same level as The Raid, of course, but nothing short of the other works like The Merciless. Where I find it falls short, aside from the predictable plot, is in some aspects the character development, particularly of Jaehyun. It didn't feel like she changed as much as she portrayed in the film, especially her actions in the last scene, which I won't spoil, but it didn't quite feel justified. I wish she had gotten more character development to get that hard, badass female role that she tries to portray. Aside from that, the subplots that is hinted at throughout the film are never materialized fully. One of them being the romance between the two characters. It is shown in several scenes, the connection between the two, and it is the focus of several scenes, but nothing is actually formalized, which makes you wonder why it exists in the first place. The second being the backstory of Jae-yoon. She holds a grudge against her arms dealer of an uncle who's responsible for the death of her parents, so she suffered great losses, which obviously sets this up for a revenge plot. But unfortunately, her character doesn't become more than a plot device for the main plot, and not a satisfying one at that. On the technical part, the cinematography is top notch. The beautiful scenery of Jeju Island is captured wonderfully with its serene vibes and calmness, putting it in contrast to the brutal and violent nature of the film, an aspect which I absolutely loved. The audio as well, there are some calm scenes with the waves clashing against the shore, or scenes where nothing much is happening, but the music definitely builds the tone for what is to come. And the same goes for the fight scenes. They feel heavy to the ear, making each punch felt. And the music, it invokes a sense of melancholia and desperation, matching the overall pacing of the film. Speaking of the pacing, though, it is a bit of a weird one. I would describe it as a roller coaster. It starts slow, picks up some steam, only to diverge, then pick up some steam again, and then flatten out to the big finale at peak. Which I didn't mind it, honestly. I think it fit the tone of the film, the overall aesthetics, considering the location, the type of characters involved, and the actual revelation and climax. So I think the pacing was fitting, but it might not be to everyone's taste. Night in Paradise is not flawless. Park Hoon-jung has certainly directed better films in the past, and this is by no means his best, but he does return to the root of the Korean gangster film and executes it cleanly. And I think that's important. It doesn't need to be new, it just needs to be well crafted, and Night in Paradise certainly is. There are scenes that are particularly well shot, like when Tae-goo and Jeon share mulho, a type of Korean seafood dish, and start to bond over it in contemplation. And there are scenes that show the gruesome violence of that world, like when Tae-goo gets beaten to a unrecognizable pulp. I think it balances overall nicely. All things considered, overall, I'll give the film a 4.5 out of 6.